Good morning, friends. At this time, as part of the Hadoop and Spark Developer course, we are talking about import, and so far we have covered a few important commands such as list databases, list tables, and also import all tables, along with eval. And eval is a very significant command. If you want to develop a data integration framework using Scoop, if you want to get data from source databases into Hadoop, running Scoop commands itself is not enough. You have to develop a framework around it, either by using shell scripting or Python. Python is more prevalent than shell scripting, and in that context, you need to update log files about the progress of your integration on regular basis. And for that purpose, you need to understand the significance of eval. If you want to store the logging information of your data integration in a database, you can use eval and execute whatever query you want. And also, as emphasized earlier, eval does not use MapReduce. It directly connects to the database using JDBC, and it will get the results of whatever query you try to execute in the database. Okay, it's like regular SQL Plus or SQL Developer or Toad or SQL Workbench. Like it works like a client to connect to the database and get the results. And then we have seen import all tables. Even though import all tables sounds powerful to get all the data from all the tables from the source database into target, it has many limitations. You cannot perform any sort of transformations using import all tables. You cannot use it for delta, and also it will only use parallel threads, one table after the other. So if you have hundreds and thousands of tables, you cannot just use import all tables and expect it will be faster. It will waste a lot of time and resources. So you have to come up with, you need to understand the problem, and you have to come up with a solution where you can introduce the manual parallelism, wherein you group different tables in different pools, and then use regular scoop import command by writing wrapper around those things. So you need to plan in such a way that by the time the largest table completes, everything else should be completed. And that's how you should actually plan. You have to introduce manual parallelism. Scoop intrinsic parallelism might not be good enough. Anyway, I will revisit that once again after I talk about import. For now, let's go ahead and get into the most important command in Scoop, which is import. So you can go to my website, itversity.com, go to the self-paced courses. There's a course for CCS Spark and Hadoop Developer Certification, and you have this lesson called Data Ingest Using Scoop. In that, as of now, we are talking about import into Hadoop. Okay, and you can scroll down. Import all tables is covered. Almost all the important arguments are explained. Now we will get into Scoop import. Okay, so this is how the Scoop import looks like. I am zooming in a little bit. Scoop import, connect username, password as before, and then the table name in the database. So for import all tables, we will not pass the table name. We will just say import all tables, and it will actually import the data. So here you can either use -- table or -- query. So when you use -- query and pass a query over here, instead of connecting to the table, it will issue the query and then it will try to import the data. So as part of Scoop import, -- table and -- query are mutually exclusive. You will not use both in the same query. Either you use a -- table and pass tabular view here, you can even specify view here, or you can also specify query and give the query here. And then as text file, if you want to store the data in text file, even if you do not add it, it is default, but these are the other 4 parameters which you can use if you want to store data in Avro or sequence or text or Parquet file. And then target directory, is the location to which data will be loaded. So here if you say warehouse directory and if you give this path, it will create a subdirectory called departments, whatever is the table name. So the actual data will be under user training 8634 scoop import departments if you use warehouse directory, because whatever path you specify here, it will create a subdirectory with the table name and then load the data if you use the warehouse directory. So for scoop import, you can choose either of warehouse directory or target directory, or you can actually pre-create the directory for your table and directly perform scoop import with target directory, which will copy the data. So it's up to you how you design your framework. I personally feel warehouse directory might be better because you don't need to worry about passing the table name as subdirectory under the base directory into which you want to store the data. You just have to specify till here, and it will automatically create the directory with the table which is passed if you use warehouse directory. So there seems to be a question. Let me look into it. No, it's not similar to eval command. Eval command does not use MapReduce, whereas scoop import with the query will use MapReduce. The only difference is instead of getting all the columns from a table, you can actually join you can actually submit a join query and all those things as part of the query. And let me explain. Let me run this command, and then we will see how we the difference between -- table and the -- query. Okay, but eval is different. Eval does not use MapReduce. Yeah, so again, who is that asked the question? Venkatanampudi. He is asking, can you explain again about warehouse directory? I will demonstrate it, you will understand easily. Okay, so I am connecting to the lab. Okay. So you can actually copy paste everything except this target directory you have to change, and you need to make sure this path exists when you run this command. So here I am using target directory. I am trying to copy the data from departments table and loading data into target directory. And now if I run this, it's already exists. So Hadoop fs -rm -r So here, when we use target directory, whatever directory you specify, it need not be the table name. You can have whatever directory you want, but the directory should not be already existing. If it is already existing, it will fail. So you can say source table as departments, and the target directory, you can specify whatever directory you want. Okay, but it is not a good practice to choose directory name other than the source table unless you are using Hive tables and you are using partitioning strategy, etc. Otherwise, your table name and directory name should be same. Okay. Now you can see that the data is copied, and you can see Hadoop fs -ls. It has created 4 files because our number of mappers is 4. Okay. And you can see each of them have the data. These are all files. If you cat, we can see the data because it is stored in with the target directory. You have to give directory that is not already existing. When we run earlier, when the directory exists, it failed. Okay, so now we will see what is warehouse directory. So let me delete this again. So the target directory is the one which will be used to store the data. It will not create any subdirectories when you use target directory. When you use warehouse directory, so instead of target directory, now I am using warehouse directory. Okay, ideally we should not give the directory up to this level. We have to give, so typically we will have a base directory into which we want to copy all the tables. The base directory could be the database name of the source database. In this case, the source database is retail_db, so we will have a base directory for the database in HDFS, and then we will give only till that point. Okay, now if I delete this, okay, if I delete this and hit enter, okay, now scoop import directory is already existing. For target directory, you cannot pass the location which is already existing, it will fail. Whereas with warehouse directory, it will try to create a subdirectory with the table name, whatever is the source table name, and it will copy the data to there. Okay, so we have removed the user training 8634 scoop import departments, and then we have specified warehouse directory till scoop import, and then we copied the data. Now if you do Hadoop FSLS on scoop import departments, you can see there is a directory and there are files copied over there. So when you actually develop a data integration framework, okay, it's a better practice to only give till here and use warehouse directory. If you use warehouse directory, if the table already existing, if the table if you use warehouse directory, it will try to store the data by creating the subdirectory if the directory does not exist. Okay, that's what the difference between warehouse and target directory. Coming back to Mohan's question, departments can be pre-existing also, right? So typically departments should not be pre-existing unless you are performing the import with append mode. Okay, so when you use append mode, even with target directory, the directory can be existing. It will only add new files. So for example, in this case, the directory is already existing. Okay, earlier when we run with target directory, it failed. So here I will just say append and hit enter. Now it will not fail. It will create 4 additional files for this new run. We are trying to get everything, so just to demonstrate how the append works. So that's the significance of append. So if we go to the scoop user guide, and go to scoop import syntax, if you go to not the common arguments, import control arguments, the first one is append in the alphabetical order, that's why they have given append. And the significance of append is this one. Now if I actually do Hadoop FS -ls, you can see there are 8 files instead of 4 because it has appended again the same data into the existing directory. So append means it does not append to the files, it will actually create more files within the directory. Okay, so that's how you can accomplish delta. You can use append with both warehouse directory as well as a target directory. Okay, as per my knowledge, I am not sure whether I am correct. You can actually play with it and you can confirm, but I think it works with both warehouse and target directory. So is it clear? So we have covered append. These are the 4 parameters which will determine the file format. And boundary query I have explained as part of the last class. By default, when you actually run the scoop import command, it will issue this query, get the metadata of table, and then it will actually issue bounding values query with min and max, and if you want to address the outliers and to reduce the skew in the data set, you can define the boundary query and you can actually specify whatever boundary query you want. If you want to from a table, if you want to get subset of columns, instead of all columns, if you want to just get subset of columns, you can use hyphen columns. So table and columns works well, but when you use query, you should not use columns, because columns is, if you want to pass the table, if you want to get data only from one table, and if you want to get only subset of columns instead of all the columns, you just have to specify the columns and you can specify whatever columns you want. In that case, what happens is, instead of using select star from while querying the data from the source database, it will append these columns in the select clause and you will only get those columns that are required by applying the boundary query. And then delete target directory. So if you use hyphen delete target directory, it will delete and it will reload the data. So that's how you can actually overwrite the data, by using delete target directory. Okay, Gopi has a question. I will come back to that in a moment. Direct is again using direct load feature. I have explained with the import all tables also, so I am not actually getting into that at this time. So fetch size. So if you want to just fetch so many number of rows at the time of querying the data, you can use fetch size. I haven't used before. You can try it out. Inline lob limit I have explained in import all tables. So num mappers is to control the number of number of parallel threads to pull the data into HDFS from the relational database. Hyphen query is mutually exclusive to table and columns. When you have hyphen query, you should not use table and columns. So query, you can pass whatever statement you want, any SQL query. So for example, if we go to this one and search for hyphen query example, you can see that I am actually joining orders and order items. Okay, and then I am trying to get the output of this query as part of my import process. So that also can be done, and you have to use where conditions. That is because to address it's a syntax. You have to apply this one also. If you dig into the details, you will understand. You don't need to worry about it. Just remember that you have to apply this where conditions with query. If you don't specify this, it will not work. So what will happen is, it will use this query and then apply the boundary query to get the results from the underlying data. And if you want to use number of mappers more than one, because you are joining multiple tables here, Scoop cannot determine what should be the key on which data has to be splitted. So for that reason, whenever you use query, you have to use split by if the number of mappers is greater than 1. So this is a very important point which you need to remember, because if as part of the certification, if they expect you to perform this kind of stuff, if you just specify num mappers 1 and use query and try to copy the data, it might take a little bit longer. So to save the time, it is better to specify num mappers 4. So Pramod is asking to repeat. So if you want to get the result of a query, you have to use hyphen query to get the data. So when you use hyphen query, you can give any query you want. So in this case, I am joining two data sets from orders and order items and trying to get the output of it as part of the import. And then you as per the syntax, you have to use this one also, where dollar conditions. In this case, I am using backslash because for dollar we have to escape when we try to run from a Linux terminal. That's why I have to say /$. Okay, and then you have to. So if you want to use more than one as number of mappers, which means that if you want to use more than one parallel thread, when you use query, here we are saying two tables. in some query, some other query we might have 3 tables. In one query we might have only one table, but the select query logic might be different. So Sqoop cannot determine on which data has to be divided into chunks to copy the data using parallel threads if number of mappers is 4. So if our number of mappers is greater than 1. So if you want to use parallel degree on top of this query to get the data, you have to set split by and you have to pass the column name using which you want to divide the data with number of mappers. So that is the significance of order ID. So there are few questions, let me take here. So the first one is Gopi. If the table does not have primary key, will boundary query will take the same min and max. So boundary query will override the primary key. So you don't need to worry about primary key. As part of the boundary query, you will actually specify what is the min value and what is the max value directly. So you don't need to worry about primary key at all. You can apply the boundary query on any table whether it has primary key or not. But and you don't need to even worry about the index. You can actually hard code as part of the query also. Okay, so it is nothing to do with the primary key. Once you use boundary query or split by, the requirement of having primary key will go away. And then Mohan's question is, can I specify where condition in query itself? Yes, but you have to use where. Very good question. Where dollar conditions, and then you can actually have whatever conditions you want, additional conditions you want. I think this dollar condition should be at the end. So you can say where whatever conditions you want. In the end, you have to say end and then slash dollar conditions. Okay, that will work without any issue. So Raj is asking a question: can split by be more than one columns? I don't think so. I think it does not work like that. You have to specify only one column, and the better practice is to use indexed column rather than non-indexed column, because getting min and max on sorted data is faster than unsorted data. So when you use split by column, internally first it will try to get min and max. So that's why it will try to go with primary key. Primary key is by default indexed. If you don't have primary key and if you want to use split by to get the data by dividing into multiple chunks, then always you have to specify a indexed column in split by clause. As a better practice, you can specify whatever you want, but it will be better to specify indexed column. So he is asking, Pramod is asking, what if we can run at maximum 4 mappers parallelly and number of specified mapper is 8? How does it handle? This is not correct question actually. You specify number of mappers as 4 or 8. You don't club those two things. Either you will specify number of mappers as 4 or number of mappers as 8. That's it. Yes, number of mappers is 4 by default, but if you want to change it, you have to change it like this, either -- num -mappers or -n. This is to answer Keshav's question. Coming back to Mohan's question, the SQL query is based on ANSI SQL. So SQL query should be a valid SQL query in the underlying database. So if it is MySQL, you have to use everything else except dollar conditions should be a valid MySQL query or Oracle query if you try to get the data from Oracle database. It's all depends upon whatever source database you are using. Okay. Sqoop does not validate whether this query is ANSI SQL or not. It will just determine, assume that whatever query you are passing is the correct query for the source database, and then wrap it around with some other additional features such as applying that where condition to get min and max values, etc., and it will submit the query inside the database. And this is not correct question. If we specify 8 mappers, that is not correct question at all. And there is nothing like 8 mappers and current configuration Hadoop can run only 4 mappers in parallel. Then what happens? Okay, I understand your question. If you specify 8 mappers and if the capacity of the cluster is only 4, Okay, first of all, you have to think big. The capacity of the cluster will should always be bigger, especially you are a fresher. Most of the guys falter at the interview on this. Okay, don't think in the smaller numbers, think about the bigger numbers. Your question is if you specify more mappers than the capacity. Okay, when you use scoop, you should not do that. It should always be less than the capacity, much less than the capacity. But at that time when you submit the query, if the capacity is not available for your query to run, and if you specify number of mappers more than whatever available capacity is, it works like any other MapReduce job. Whatever capacity is available, it will only use those many threads to process the data, others will be in pending state. It's nothing but a MapReduce job. It will apply the MapReduce logic. So when you submit multiple MapReduce jobs simultaneously beyond the capacity, whatever happens, the same thing will happen with scoop as well. Okay, so think about MapReduce. When it comes to execution, what will happen in the MapReduce? The same thing will be applied whether you use Scoop or Hive or any other technology which uses MapReduce as the execution engine. I hope that answered your question. If not, you can actually follow up at the end of the class. Okay, unless you want to clarify immediately. And also you can let us go back to the documentation again. So we have covered query, we have covered split by, auto reset to one mapper. So in case if you don't have primary key and if you are not sure, and if you want to use as part of your data integration framework a common number of mappers for each and every table, but if there are some tables which does not have primary keys, you can say auto reset to one mapper. So wherever table does not have primary key, it will try to use only one thread. And if you see here, it cannot be used with split by. Okay, and table is the one which actually gets the data from a table. Target directory is the one which we specify the directory. Warehouse directory is the parent of the table destination, where is to apply filters on the data which you want to get. So you can actually say, so if you have only one table and if you want to get only few columns, and if you want to apply where condition, you can use table to specify the table name, columns to specify the subset of columns, and where clause to apply the additional filters on the data you want to fetch. Where comes very handy when we try to perform incremental load. Okay, and then if you want to compress, you have to first enable compress by saying -- compress, and then compression codec to specify the algorithm which you want to use as part of the compression codec. So to understand the compression codecs, I have a couple of videos in my channel. If you search for compression, you will get it. Covers a lot of theory about compression and different compression algorithms. You just have to use those things here. We will not get into the actual compression itself as part of the course. Okay, and then two very important parameters: null string and null non-string. So when it comes to source database, nulls will be represented in their proprietary format, which we don't need to worry about it at all. But in HDFS, data will be in whatever format we want. And when we get the null, for example, if it is string, we have to store in some fashion. Otherwise, the query, otherwise the processing frameworks will have impacts later. So to represent a null string in a particular manner, you can say -- null string. And whenever there is a null, whenever a column from the source table returns a row which have null value in it, while loading into HDFS, it will apply whatever null string we have specified here, and it will store that as part of the data while storing in HDFS. So this is to override nulls for strings, and this is to override for non-strings such as numeric values. Okay, and you can see that if not specified, then the string null will be used. But if the data set have null itself as a value in some of the columns, then we are not sure which one is correct. Hence, we have to override that. Okay, and for both null string as well as non-string, it will try to use null itself in HDFS, because when you store in HDFS, there is no data type for the data. Everything will be stored based upon the file format you are storing. If it is text file format, everything is text. So whether you use whether you try to override nulls for numeric or string values, by default it will use null when it's stored in HDFS, even for numeric values. So these are the import control arguments, and most of them are self-explanatory. Only thing is you should focus on doing minor transformations such as filtering the data and subset of columns. For that purpose, you need to use multiple parameters: --table, --columns, and --where. Similarly, if you want to use where clause, if you want to use query instead of table, you should not use columns in that. Everything should be as part of the query itself. So you have to practice these things, and then only you will be able to understand or remember the logic. Okay. So being said that, now I will run one scoop command which will cover most of the control arguments. Okay, let me see which one should I use. Yeah, I will use this one. There are additional attributes also here. Okay, so let me, here it should be user, not okay, this is for CloudX Lab, so it will work. As long as we have database called detail_stage.db, it will work. Okay, let me run this query. For that, first I need to validate whether. So let me explain the command. Here we are trying to connect to the database using JDBC URL, username and password. This is the table which we are trying to copy from, and this is the target directory to which we want to copy the data. Append, because we are trying to use where condition and load the new data which is not copied before. Again, when you actually develop the data integration framework, this has to be dynamically computed, especially this value, and that's where the eval comes into picture. Before building this query using your programming language of your choice, you should be able to connect to the database using eval command, get whatever is copied earlier, and you should replace with relevant values for here when you try to perform incremental loads using where condition. Okay, and then fields terminated by and lines terminated by will determine what are the terminators for each of the columns and lines. And split by, so if you want to give a split by, even on the table which have primary key column, you can specify the split by. There is no harm in that, as long as the column is indexed. Okay, you can actually split by a different column than primary key column also by using split by, but whatever column you choose, you should use indexed column. Okay, so now the Hive is launched. Use retail_stage. In your case, in your case, what you have to do is you have to first create the database with your name. Create database, if not exists, training 8634. This is my username, so I have created the database here. Okay, and then use training 8634 to switch to the database, show tables. Don't think too much about Hive while performing this, because this is, at this time we are not talking about Hive completely. We are actually talking about Sqoop, but I am using a Hive database because we will be performing Hive imports also. So from Hive context, just blindly follow for now. Once we cover Hive, everything will fall in place. Okay. So if you use if not exists in Hive, if the database already exists, it will just ignore. Okay, if database does not exist, it will just create. The database is already existing, that's why we see all these tables here, and you can say select star from departments and hit enter. So there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 tables. Okay, now we will try to connect to the MySQL. One minute, I will come back to your query and to your okay, so use retail underscore db show tables and select star from departments. So there are few records 8 and 11, and we want to get this data as part of the incremental load. So that's the requirement, and here is the query which we'll be using. So we can copy till here, but the database name is not retail stage, it's training 8634. So I have to use training 8634.db. So whenever you create a database in Hive, under apps Hive warehouse, if it is Hotworks distribution, it will create a directory with the database name and .db extension. Okay, that's why we have to say like this apps Hive warehouse, the database name .db, and then we can give the rest of the stuff. Everything else can be same. And hit enter. So now you can see data is copied. It has retrieved 2 records using the where condition, because as part of the where condition we said department ID greater than 7. Even the boundary query also it have applied this where condition, if you see. Okay. Now Hive is not covered in the last class. Hive is a database on top of Hadoop. We will be covering Hive later. Okay, but that's what, whenever you encounter Hive as part of the this topic, you just blindly follow whatever is there. You will understand Hive in detail later. Hive is another very important topic. Okay, and it takes time. It takes couple of classes to cover Hive completely. Yeah, I am recapping. So earlier we have only 7 records, 6 records in the Hive table, which was already existing. Okay, and then I ran this query. Okay, specifying where department ID greater than 7. Table departments where department ID greater than 7. That's the main thing here. We are using where clause. Okay, and it has ran successfully, applying this condition not only on the boundary query and also while copying the data. That's why you can see it has retrieved only 2 records. So there are only 2 records which satisfies the condition department ID greater than 7, because you can see 2 to 7, 8 and 11. These are the only values we have, and greater than 7 are only 2 values. Now those rows are inserted into the Hive table, and now if I say select star from departments, okay, it got null value. The reason is the delimiter in Hive. So in Hive table, what I have is using null characters as the delimiters, whereas as part of the scoop command, we have specified pipe as the delimiter. So that's where the gap is. But if we actually perform dfs-cat, go to this location, okay, and part-m star and hit enter. You can see data is copied. Okay, 8 pipe fan swap and 11 pipe testing. This is because I was playing with it. So if that's why you see little bit of inconsistency. But the bottom line is, by using the where condition, you can actually perform the incremental load. For example, if you have a table and the table gets data only in the insert mode, typically most of the log tables which logs the transactions about the transactions that are happening on the for a particular platform, the logs will be typically only in the insert mode. It will have the whole life cycle saying transaction started, transaction in process, transaction completed or cancelled or failed. Everything will be there as part of the log table. So those log tables are typically in the insert mode, and most likely those log tables will have a timestamp column. So using the timestamp column, you can apply where condition and get the delta easily. So that's where is very significant in developing reliable data integration platform to get the data from relational databases into HDFS using Scoop. Okay, so and is that enough, Mohan, or are you expecting something else? Hive is just to show that I am actually trying to delta. That's why I logged into Hive. Don't worry too much about Hive at this time. Only focus on the Scoop. Okay, and then so we spoke about all the control arguments, and then let us see, there will be other set of arguments also. So incremental arguments, one of the ways is to use where clause, as I have shown before, and also you can actually specify incremental imports using these 3 arguments. Check column, so specify the column to be examined when determining which rows to import. So this will actually give the column name using which you want to perform the incremental import. And then incremental mode, the legal values include append and last modified. 1 minute, I forgot. Yeah, last modified is typically used with the dates, and then you have to specify the hyphen incremental last modified, and then you have to specify what is the last value from which it has to get the data. So instead of specifying in where condition, you can actually use these 3 columns and get the similar behavior. I don't use these that frequently. I will try to generate my where condition and get the data directly. I don't get into these 3 things. They have unnecessarily complicated this. So there is a control argument which will specify a column. There is a control argument which will specify append or last modified. Append will be used typically for insert only type of data, and last modified is to get all the rows based on a date. Okay, if it is append, typically as part of the last value we will have the numeric values. If it is last modified, we will typically have the date value. So that thing can be easily implemented using where clause. And then output line formatting arguments, I have covered this as part of import all tables also. I am re-emphasizing here because this is important. As you have seen, if the underlying data in HDFS does not, so there are two things, right? One is loading data into HDFS and processing data into HDFS. So loading data we are using Scoop, and processing data will be using Hive. Hive is nothing but a logical database where we will create the tables and querying the data from those tables. So Hive is a processing engine once the data is in HDFS. While creating Hive tables, we will specify the delimiters. Okay, if that delimiters which we have specified at the time of creating the table is out of the sync with Scoop delimiters while storing the data into HDFS, you will get the inconsistent results. Okay, so that is what have happened here. Table is created with null as delimiter, and Scoop we try to use pipe as delimiter to load the data, and when we try to query the table, it is showing incorrect results. So the bottom line is you should use fields terminated by and lines terminated by values the same as the underlying data processing platform. In this case, it is Hive. Hive uses null characters for fields terminated by. Hence, we should use in Scoop also we should use the null as field terminator. Otherwise, while we try to process the data, it does not work. This is a very important point, and it can cause significant confusion because we are talking about two different tools, and if it does not work properly, or if you don't think this properly, you will run into so many issues. Okay, and fields terminated by is to delimit the columns values by columns, and lines terminated by to delimit the rows in while storing data in HDFS. MySQL delimiters is actually to use MySQL delimiters itself. So if you use MySQL delimiters, comma will be the row delimiter, slash n will be or new line character will be the line delimiter. On top of that, we have escaped by, optionally unclosed by also. So escaped by is if you are trying to import special characters, you need to escape. So this will actually take care of the escaping. Whatever character you want, you can escape with that character. And enclosed by is if the delimiter is within the value, and if you want to enclose with double quotes, then you have to use enclosed by. Optional enclosed by will enclose all the columns in the table. If you want to enclose only if there is issue with the data, then you have to use optionally enclosed by. Typically, we don't use these things. Instead, we use delimiters such as null characters so that we don't run into issues with the data quality. We should not use delimiters such as comma or pipe or column, which is which might be all existing in fields such as address or phone numbers, etc., and can cause issues later. So we have to choose delimiters which is not used in our data set. Okay, null character or some special characters can be used as delimiters. So that is about output line formatting arguments. Mohan was asking a question. Let me check that. So in MySQL, you have timestamp to find last loaded value. But if you want to load from HDFS folder to another HDFS folder for HDFS folder for further process, any easy method apart from creating a manual framework? No, there is no easy process. You have to develop that framework. You can use Hive. So once you load data using Scoop into HDFS, as the data is structured, you can create a table on top of it. And once you have the table, you can use Hive queries to process the data. But Scoop can actually give you a lot more flexibility, and we'll talk about that later. Shall we talk about Hive for 5 minutes so we can clear doubts overall? Hive component is part of every Hadoop project or is it optional? Yes, Hive wheel is very important. That's why we will have almost a couple of classes of content on Hive itself. Okay, so don't worry about it if you don't understand Hive now. Okay, so once we talk about Hive, you can come back to this video because I will be uploading these things, and then you will be able to relate very easily. Okay, so after Scoop, I will be emphasizing on Hive only, probably from the next class. It will take at least 2 hours to cover Hive completely. Okay, I don't want to mix. Only thing is, yes, there is mutual dependency between the two. If we talk in both the terms at the same time, it will add confusion. So that's why I'm not getting into too many details about Hive here. Okay, so input passing arguments is not that important for import. For export, we will be looking at the time of export. I will explain those things, and then these are the parameters for Hive. So if you want to import into Hive directly using Scoop, so these are the control arguments. So to say that this is it is a Hive import or enabling the Hive import can be done saying -- Hive import. If you want to overwrite the data, you can use -- Hive overwrite. If you want to create Hive tables while loading the data, you have to say create Hive table. If you want to specify a table name into which the data needs to be copied, you can use Hive table. You can drop import delimiters by specifying this one. This one we will not be using these two parameters that frequently. And Hive partition key and Hive partition value is if you want to import data into a table that is already partitioned. Again, using Scoop import will not be loading data into Hive partitions directly. It's highly unlikely. Okay, so there is another question from Mohan. Which is better practice to copy using Scoop into HDFS or into Hive table? Which does the industry use? That's what I'm trying to say now. You are spot on that. So typically, we will try to store the data into HDFS. In some cases, we will create a staged Hive database where tables will not be partitioned, and we will load data into that staged database directly, staged Hive database, so that we can directly query the data and further processing. So loading the HDFS is more common, but even after loading into HDFS, you can create external table using Hive to process the data. In some cases, when we actually have a landing zone in Hadoop, we can actually create a Hive database for it without doing any transformations, and then we will be processing downstream using Hive directly, running Hive queries directly on the table. But the actual transformed data will be in a different database. We should not. So, for example, let me do the whiteboarding. I have to essentials, yeah. So file new, okay. So typically we will get data from database, and this is Hadoop cluster, okay. So here the database are logical in Hadoop cluster. So there are two ways to do that. You have HDFS already, and even if you use Hive, the data will be stored in HDFS only, okay. So typically what we'll do is we'll create multiple Hive databases. One can be landing or staging. Other can be EDW, which will store the data after processing. So getting into this landing zone, you can use Scoop. So this can be built only using HDFS, and then you can use external tables on top of that data. Or you can also perform Hive imports directly into this. But you should not focus on partitioning the data, applying transformations on the data while storing the data in a landing zone. Whether you use Hive database, which will store data in HDFS itself, or HDFS, it doesn't matter. But to load the data from EDW, you should not get from the source database directly. You have to process data from the landing zone and store into EDW after applying all the transformations, aggregations, etc. Okay, so that's how we will implement. So to answer your question, typically we do in HDFS, but it is also common practice to load data from Scoop into Hive also. Okay. Out of context question I will talk about later. Okay, so now let's move on. Remember that question Gopi and ask me in Q&A time. Because we are already way behind, I want to wrap up Scoop as much as possible today, and I want to wrap up within first 15 minutes as part of the next class. Okay, so don't worry too much about Hive partition key, Hive partition value, and all those things. If you are interested, you can explore. The most important commands are Hive import, Hive override. By default, it's append mode. Hive load the data in append mode. If you want to overwrite, you use overwrite. So if you want to create the tables while loading the data itself, you can say create Hive table, and then Hive table means if you want to load one table at a time, and if you want to give a table name, then you have to specify table name here, and those are the important parameters. Okay. So now let me do one thing. I have already created a database. Okay. So you can create the database like this, create database if not exists database name, and either you can create a table here, or you can use create Hive table to create the table while performing the import in Hive mode itself. So here if I go, so you can see here I have covered how to take care of creating the table, and then and then load into that. So I will recommend you to use only database name with your username, so that it will be easier for us to clean later, and then use that database name, create a table like this. Once it is done, you can perform Hive import like this. So I will not be running this, it's already there as part of the code. Okay, so here you can also specify which database you want to store into. If you look into the parameters, they do not explain about Hive database parameter, but this will work. You can also specify which database you want to store into, or you can also specify database name dot table name as part of the Hive table. Okay, only difference is it will try to store data into Hive database, from which we can directly query the data. Either you can pre-create the table like this, or you can specify create Hive table at the time of Scoop import itself to create the tables. Okay, that's about Hive parameters. And let me see, for HBase it's out of scope, I will not be talking about HBase. So that's it. So those are the most important parameters for Hive. You have to for Scoop, you have to practice import command as much as possible. Again, once you practice, if you have questions, you can ask as part of the Q&A session, and I will try to address those to the best of my knowledge. But without practicing, you will forget very quickly, because there are too many tools, too many syntaxes and semantics you need to understand. So you have to keep on practicing, you have to refer the documentation to make sure you understand. So very good question from Mohan. It is out of context. Please keep that in mind and ask at the end of the class. But that is a very good question. To answer you quickly, it will be used as part of data warehouse in Hadoop, and I will explain the significance of it later. Okay, then so the scoop import is done. So keep practicing and come up with questions. I'll be glad to answer them. Now we will talk about scoop export. I have already covered delimiters also and also file formats, so I will not be opening this up and showing it. I have organized like this to be in line with the certification, but while explaining I am not following the same flow. I am following the flow which can cover the topics as quickly as possible. So as part of this, we will be talking about scoop export. Okay, so scoop import is to get data from relational database into HDFS or Hive. Scoop export is the other way around, to get data from Hadoop or Hive into relational databases. Okay. So first let us understand the way it will run, work. So for that I will be doing the whiteboarding here. So this is our Hadoop cluster. Let me okay, so this is our Hadoop cluster and this is our database. Okay, Hadoop cluster will have multiple servers, and for example, if you have a file of size 1 GB with the block size 128 MB, there will be 8 blocks. So on a 3-node cluster, let us take that replication factor is only 1. Okay, so those 8 blocks will be distributed on all the nodes in the cluster. Okay, so now when you perform the scoop import, we need to get data from HDFS into relational database. Okay, the way you connect to the database is same. JDBC URL, connect string, everything is same. Username, password and table in the MySQL database or any target database is same. Only difference is in the syntax you will start with scoop export, and then scoop export does not have so many variations of control arguments the way we see in import. The reason is when it actually performs the scoop export, it does not look into the data. It does not try to apply transformations on the data. It will just get the record. It uses MapReduce framework to get the data. So to read the data, it uses the split logic in MapReduce. Okay, so by default it will try to process one block at a time, or it will actually club multiple blocks at a time depending upon number of mappers. In this case, let's take the example of number of mappers is 4, not 8. So when you specify only 4, what the scoop export will try to do is it will try to process 2 blocks at a time. So it will modify the split size based on the number of mappers here. So if the number of mappers is 8, the split size will be 128 MB. If the number of mappers is 4, the split size will be 256 MB. If the number of mappers is 2, the split size will be 512 MB. If the number of mappers is 1, in this case the split size will be 1 GB. So using the metadata of the data, it will understand what is the size of the data which we are trying to copy, and based on that it will try to use combined file input format internally, which will and also it will override the split size, and it will try to process using the MapReduce framework using the split size internally. Okay, so again I am recapping. So the number of mappers will be applied on the data set using the split logic, and it will try to process the data. Okay, in this case, if the file is 1 GB, block size is 128 MB, there will be 8 blocks for that given data set. And when you specify number of mappers 8, each mapper will try to process one block at a time. If you say number of mappers as 4, using split size of 256 MB in this case, it will try to process 2 blocks at a time in each mapper to read the data from HDFS, and from there it will build the insert statement and execute those insert statements in the target database. So as it does not get into data in a reliable format such as applying where conditions, etc. on the source database, while doing the export, it does not give so many options to manipulate the data while loading back from HDFS into relational database. Okay, so that's the major difference between import and export. For import, it uses the it uses the primary key column, compute the min and max, and then you use those that information to divide data into multiple chunks to load the data. Whereas in export, it uses the HDFS internal or HDFS or MapReduce internal features such as block size and split size to create parallel threads to copy data from HDFS into relational database. Okay. Now let us go back to the Sqoop user guide and scroll up. I always start in the index. Sqoop export is here, so there is a question here. So Gopi is asking, how does the replicate blocks got selected, which one to be used? That is internal to MapReduce, so you don't need to worry about it. It will try to use, so there are multiple factors when it try to choose the blocks. First one is data locality, second one is the load on the node. So even if, for example, if there are 2 nodes and one node is completely busy with and there are no resources, but it has the data which is required to processed by a subsequent job. When the subsequent job is forked on the second node, even though if it does not have the data, even though it is compromising data locality, and the aim is to complete the processing as quickly as possible. It will perform the network IO and get the blocks on the other nodes, and then it will process the data. So it will use the internal features of MapReduce itself. So here, when it comes to questions related to execution, you should think from the MapReduce point of view. It's all MapReduce here to process the data. Okay, good question. Sqoop export. So Sqoop export, you have common arguments. I don't need to get into those things. It's exactly same for import all tables, etc. Control arguments are the ones which will differ from import. Import you have almost 25. Here you have approximately 12 or 13. So you can actually specify columns here as part of the export. It does not use the flexibility. It does not give the flexibility to apply where clause, but you can specify columns here. Columns to export to table, and then direct path to to use the underlying database bulk load features or direct load features. You can use that here. It works well with MySQL or Postgres, but it does not work with other databases. Export directory. So this is the directory from which we want to read the data. So this is the one which will have the HDFS path. Number of mappers to determine the concurrent map task to process the data. Table to populate the table name. Call. So I will cover these things as part of the next class. Call, update key, and update mode. And here you can see that input null string, input null not string is to convert the strings which are representing null in HDFS into null values in the database. So these two parameters are for that. Okay. When for import, the null string and null non string will actually translate null values in the database into strings while storing in HDFS. This is the counterpart. These are counter parameters for export. They will transform the strings which are representing nulls in HDFS into the actual null values in the database. Okay, staging table also I will cover later. So table, call, update key, update mode, and staging table, clear staging table are all related, and I will cover as part of the next class. With that, we will be wrapping up scope. Okay. So, and we will see if there are any, so inserts versus updates also will be covered as part of the next class. And then the next important arguments are passing arguments. Okay. So as I mentioned to you earlier, I told input passing arguments is not very important for import. Similarly, output line formatting arguments are not important for export. Okay. I think it is irrelevant for export. Input passing arguments is the one which we need to pass to specify what is the field delimiter in HDFS, what is the line delimiter in HDFS, etc., and also enclosed by, escaped by, etc. So whatever we have seen in output line formatting arguments for import, these are the counter commands for export. Okay, and we need to specify these things if the delimiters in HDFS are different from the scoop defaults, so that the fields are delimited properly. Okay, and that's it. These are the important scoop export arguments, and I will demonstrate a simple scoop export command here, and then we will talk about the update, all the other parameters which are not covered as part of this class. Okay, so you need to follow few steps here. First, you need to connect to the MySQL database. It will be better to create a table with your name here. So departments under what is your initials or something else to make it unique. You can use this one called ctask, create table as select, to get the structure from the existing departments table and create this departments underscore export. Once it is done, you can use scoop export -- connect with JDBC URL, username, password, and here the table name is MySQL table. So here I should use departments underscore export. I should not use departments, it's a bug in my code. It should be departments underscore export, and then export directory from which we want to copy the data from. Input fields terminated by, input lines terminated by, number of mappers, output directory. Output directory, you don't need to worry much about it. It will just, so when we actually run this scoop import command, right, I will show you. Yeah, when we run scoop import command, first thing it will do is it will issue the query on the table, get one record, and then it will create a Java file. So if you want to store these Java files in a designated location, so there is a value for it in some of the formats, in some of the cases, which I don't want to get into that at this time. But if you want to get these files and store in a centralized location, you can use this outdir parameter. Okay, so first let me check whether I have this MySQL. 1 minute. Let me connect to the database now. ITversity, use retail underscore DB. So everyone has to use the same database. So you have to be extremely careful to while creating the tables here. Make sure you create a table with your own name or initials. In this case, I am trying to create the table departments underscore export as select star from the departments where 1 equal to 2. This is called as ctask. C for create, T for table, A for add, S for select. Ctask, create table as select command. Okay. Once you created the table, you can go to the another tab, come out of this. We'll be using the same location. No need to use AppSheet warehouse. We can use username scoop import, that one also. So I will be using that. Here the table names should be departments underscore, what is the table name I have used here in MySQL, departments underscore export. Okay, so copy it here. While copying with these line terminators for multi-line commands, make sure you enter space slash at the end of the line, otherwise it will execute the command immediately. Okay, so I can use departments underscore export. So there seems to be a question, I will come back to it. Export directory user training 8634 scoop import. So don't execute these commands blindly. Understand what the command is doing. Make sure you have the paths which are being referred, and then only run those commands. That will save a lot of your time. If you just copy paste blindly, and if you keep on troubleshooting the issues, it will eat up a lot of your time. So this is the one from which I want to read the data from, and then input fields and lines are terminated by pipe and new line character, and I want to use number of mappers as 2 and hit enter. So now you can see that it is not issuing the query such as boundary query. Okay, it is issuing this query with limit to get the structure of the table in the underlying target database to create that Java file, but it is not issuing the boundary query, because boundary query is not relevant for scoop export. Instead, it is saying number of splits as 2, because we have given number of mappers as 2, but we have 8 files to process. It failed because there is means the data the data in the files in the target directory I think have different delimiters for different files. That's why it is failing. We can ignore it for now, but once the data is of good quality, it will work. Because I ran a scoop import multiple times on the same directory, data got messed up. One set of files are using one type of delimiter, and the other set of files are using another type of delimiter. So in this case, if you want to troubleshoot, again it's a MapReduce job. Just use this URL and go there, go to the resource manager, go to browser and paste this one, and eventually you will understand where the issue is. So you can, even here it is actually showing, because comma is the delimiter in the dataset, and as part of the scoop export we are using pipe. It is trying to store this entire thing as part of the department ID, and it is complaining that it cannot pass the string as numeric value. So that's why we are getting number format exception. If the information is not good enough from here, then you have to go to the browser, paste this URL, and go to the logs of the underlying task, and you will be able to identify the issue. So in this case, what I have to do is, the delimiter is comma, not the pipe. So I have to change it over here. So you need to, once you complete Hive also, between scoop and Hive, you need to understand those dependencies. One of those dependencies which you need to keep in mind is the field delimiters and line delimiters and other output formatting arguments which we have seen earlier. So I hope it will work this time. Let us see, and then we will get into the Q&A. Yeah, now it worked fine. Now go to the MySQL database and run select from in this table, select star from departments underscore export, and hit enter. You can see the data being exported from HDFS into here. Okay, now I will take the questions. will the Avro format work in export? Yes, it will work as long as your underlying data is in Avro file format. Scoop can understand that. As long as you say that the underlying files you have to process is Avro, it will export the data without any issues. But the underlying data also have to be in Avro, then only you should specify as Avro format. Default is text, so I am playing with text, that's why I am not specifying as text file in these export statements. For any other formats like sequence file, Parquet or Avro, you have to say as Avro data file, as Parquet file, as sequence file, etc. So the next question is, Venkat Anampudi is asking, can you explain about out-dir Java files? So whenever we run scoop import and export, Java files is nothing but a directory. Okay, so I have ran this scoop export command here, and you can see that there is a directory Java files here. Okay, and if I go to the Java files and check for the details, what we have all Java files here. Okay, you can open these things, view departments .java, and it actually implements some of the interfaces in Hadoop and MapReduce, and create this Pojo class. Pojo class means it's plain old Java object. If you are from Java, you will understand it. It will only have the attributes and the setter and getter methods, and this Java program will be compiled into the jar file, and that jar file will be submitted as MapReduce job. Okay, so if you go through this information, first it is issuing this query in the database to get one record. So this actually returns only one record. If you go to MySQL and if you run this query by removing this single quotes, they are back quotes, not regular quotes, it will retrieve only one record. So Scoop actually issues this command in the underlying database, get the column record, and then use that record to get the data types of your data. Okay, once it gets that information, it creates a Java file, and if you want to store this in a location where you want to review how the data is looks like, it will come handy in case of advanced troubleshooting issues, especially if you are dealing with Cloudera to get the support. If your Scoop jobs are failing for some reason, they will ask you to pass this information, ask you to pass this Java file to them, and then the Scoop command, and using that information they can troubleshoot the issue. So once the Java file is created, Scoop will actually create a jar file. This jar file will have all the classes, so you can actually copy this path and then run jar tvf command to list what all classes it has. It has the departments underscore export dot class. So the Java file is compiled into class, and a jar file is created. So this jar file will be used in conjunction with the other Scoop jars to submit our program, our Scoop import as a MapReduce program, and that MapReduce program will actually do the heavy lifting of copying data from source into the target. If it is import, the source is the relational database and target is HDFS. If it is export, the source will be HDFS and target will be relational database. Okay, so out.dir is to stage those Java files on a location where we can go back and review the details. I hope it answered your question. Can we create additional audit columns while loading from Scoop into HDFS or Hive? So using Scoop, you cannot perform any anything except for creating Hive table or creating the directories. If you want to add audit columns, you have to use hard code those values in the select clause itself. For example, if you want to get the timestamp when the import happened, that needs to be included as part of your import command itself. You have to use select all the columns you want, and then the timestamp column to get the data, and then you can actually load into the HDFS. Those new columns will be created if you create the Hive table. So you have to understand all the features and you have to come up with the solution. I hope that answered your question. But Sqoop itself cannot actually add information that it does not receive for your auditing purposes. So Venkat Tanampudi is asking, I guess these Sqoop import export commands will also work non-MySQL tables if we have connection user ID, PWD details. Am I right? What I mean is we can also load data from, let's say, Oracle. Yes, that is correct. It can work on any source database as long as there is a JDBC jar file with it, and then you have to change the syntax a little bit. The connect string will change. So as of now, we are having JDBC, MySQL, hostname, port number, etc. For Oracle, it will be JDBC Oracle, and the connection URL will be different. Okay, and then the next question. Next question is from Gopi. How will be unstructured data load into HDFS? I know one is Flume for real-time data. Suppose if we have images, videos, Excel, etc. all in the mix, then you have to come up with a custom solution. There is no easy out-of-the-box solution for it. Okay, and the next question is there difference in performance while loading from Sqoop into Hive and HDFS? No, even if there will be, it will be very very less. So the overhead will be, so when you actually do Sqoop import into Hive tables, first it will load into HDFS and then copy from HDFS into Hive tables. So it's a two-step process. But copying data from HDFS into Hive locations, HDFS is also in HDFS, even Hive is in HDFS only. Hive tables will be pointing to a location in HDFS itself. Even though it has to do that additional step, it will not take very long time. So it is whatever performance hit you get using Hive for Sqoop import is negligible when you're trying to import terabytes of data. So next question from Mohan is there any web service kind of framework to provide data feed outside of Hadoop from HDFS or Hive? Yeah, Flume is there, Kafka is there. You can integrate Flume and Kafka with something called Storm. And there is another thing called Spark Streaming. So there are many of them which can actually provide data feed outside of Hadoop from HDFS or Hive. Yes, I will come back to that question, Mohan. Vasavi have asked me a question. Initially, we imported 20 records to Hive. After that, I need to add 10 more records. How can we add? That's where you have to use where condition and build that where condition by fetching the relevant information from the log tables using eval. You have to dynamically generate the Sqoop command to modify the where condition on whenever you run as an application. So that's how you should be able to get the delta. Okay. The next question from Mohan is HBase is not used as part of data warehouse in Hadoop. No, HBase has to be used in some cases. So for example, if you are from data warehousing background, there is a concept called dimensions and slowly changing dimensions. For companies like Walmart, Amazon, etc., the product table is pretty big. Okay, for smaller companies, its product dimension might not be very big, but for companies like Amazon, Walmart, etc., the product, which is the dimension in data warehouse, can be into hundreds and thousands of records, and sometimes even into millions of records, especially if you implement slowly changing dimension to keep track of history of changes of the attributes of the product. So in that case, we have, and for companies like Walmart and Amazon, the product information will be changing in real time. It will be changing all the time. One or the other product will be changing all the time. So you have to integrate that data in real time into HDFS so that you can perform the analysis. So if wherever there is a scenario in scenario of integrating data in real time into HDFS, you have to use HBase. Using HBase, you can integrate data in real time with a few seconds or few minutes lag, and the data will be imported. The history can be tracked using HBase, and all those things. All those slowly changing dimension or type 2 dimension features can be implemented using HBase. So HBase is very relevant on some of the data warehouse applications. I hope that answers your question, Mohan. A very, very good question. Venkat is asking one question on NoSQL: source database load into HDFS, transform using Spark programming framework, save data into HDFS or Hive or NoSQL, do reporting using Tableau. Is it sequence? Is it correct sequence? Okay, one question. Forget about NoSQL for this. So you start with source database, load into HDFS, transform using Spark programming framework, save data into HDFS or Hive or NoSQL, do reporting using Tableau. Is it sequence correct? That is right. You can use the Spark connector itself to get the data directly from Tableau in real time. Okay. So that's the beauty of Spark. We will talk about Spark. I need to also explain the I need to emphasize few of the points while using Scoop. I will explain as part of the next class. But for now, yes, this sequence is correct. Probably we might have to tweak some of the words later. You can build it over time. How can we import Parquet files to Hive? You can use as -- as Parquet while performing the import. Data will be imported as Parquet, and then you will be able to create an external table using the metadata that will be generated. So those things will be covered when we actually talk about Hive. So hold on to that question till that time. Still, if you have questions, we will take care of that, Vasavi. And one more thing is, I will not be demonstrating using Parquet, but I will be demonstrating using Avro end to end, how to get data using Scoop in Avro format into HDFS, and how to process that data in Hive. The same thing can be applied with Parquet also. I practiced awk in Linux. Will it be used in Hadoop or Spark? So awk is a Linux feature. It will come handy for your scripting. So as I have explained earlier, if you want to use Scoop to load the data and if you want to build application around it, so you can use all shell scripting features to dynamically generate those Scoop commands for your requirement. Okay, you cannot develop Scoop command on daily basis and execute it. You have to use these Scoop commands, make them dynamically generated, and for that you have to use one or the other programming language. So shell scripting will come handy, or you can use Python, whatever you are comfortable with. For your background, Gopi, I will recommend you to focus on shell scripting for now. But traditionally, people do not use shell for ETL purposes. If they have to develop, they will go with Python. But shell will come handy in many ways. Shell scripting will come handy in many ways. So keep practicing it. But it will not be used as part of the Hadoop or Spark. It will be used as wrapper on top of those things. Mohan have asked. So that's it for today. Don't ask any more questions. I will take care of the questions which are already asked. Okay. So first thing is, Mohan, are you planning to cover those HBase concepts in your YouTube videos? I will cover not only HBase, but not from HBase perspective, but in general, what are the tools we should use. I might use HBase or not, but I will try to emphasize those things as part of few of the videos in YouTube. Those will be covered, but it will take time. Don't expect it in a month or two. My next main target is to create the lab similar to the CloudX lab. And then also I'm actually working on big data engineer content for the next course. After that only I will be focusing on the other areas. Vasavi is asking, could you please upload these videos to YouTube? Yes, all these videos are in YouTube already. You can go to my channel or website. You can get in both the areas. So if you go through website, it will be better structured compared to YouTube. But if you go to YouTube, when it comes to the classes which I am covering here, those are not part of my website. But you can go to my channel, go to playlists here, and you can see there is a ITversity Private Hadoop and Spark Developer Training, June 2016. So this is the playlist where all these videos are being uploaded already. And if you are talking about importing using the Avro format or Parquet format and creating Hive tables, those things are already covered, and they will be covered when we actually talk about Hive again. And also you can follow my website itself to get all that information in structured format. Okay. So the next question, Raghavendra, yes, this answers your question also. All the videos covered so far are already there in YouTube channel, Raghavendra. Gopi, thanks. Okay. In general, if someone wants to learn HBase, Mapper providing free videos online. Good information, Venkat. Thank you. One question is how to see your class recording not properly navigatable in WebEx. That's what. WebEx gives only 1 GB capacity. That's why I'm not actually using WebEx recording. Instead, I am recording using a tool called MOV AVI. You can see it here. So this is the tool which is being used to record the videos, and this is the playlist where I have uploaded all the videos that are recorded thus far, and all the videos going forward also will be recorded. So if you don't see on top of it, if you don't see the time ticking when I talk in next classes, make sure you ask me to record the videos. I typically remember, but make sure you double check whether I am recording or not. If you have concern that I am not recording, you can write it immediately. I hope that answers your question, Mohan, or if your question is something else, let me know. Okay, so that's it. Unless you have any, so that's it. No more questions. Thank you very much for attending the class. So we will try to wrap up Scoop as part of the next class and start with Hive. Hive will take a couple of classes, then we'll get into Spark. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye.